guys, it's Emily and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be telling you all the books that I read in June. And May, technically, as well. So this is both. I only read like one book in May, and June was really the month that I started getting back into reading, so I'm just going to combine them both and basically tell you all the books that I've actually read this year in total. So let's jump into it. So I'm going to be doing these in order of least favorite leading up to my favorite book I guess I've so far read this year, because this is all the books I've read this year, which is a total of 9 books. So, I mean, not a ton, but a ton for me. I mean, if I read this like in 2 months, I don't think that's too bad. Getting back into reading, it's a fun time. So at the bottom of the list, we have The Boys Next Door by Jennifer E. Coles. So this is a bind-up of both Endless Summer and The Boys Next Door, and the first book is The Boys Next Door, which is the only one I read and the only one I'm going to read. This story follows our main character, Lori, who has always had the crush on the boy next door, Sean, and this summer she decided that she really wants Sean to notice her as not just like the younger girl next door. And so this is where Adam, her best friend who also lives next door, comes in, where he ends up agreeing to fake date her in order to make Sean jealous, because Adam and Sean do not get along well, and Sean just seems to also want what Adam can't have. But in doing so, when the two end up fake dating each other, they end up falling for each other. Now, this was a book I was definitely kind of excited about. Like, I mean, I hadn't heard, like, a lot about it, but just reading the plot line, it sounded like The Summer I Turned Pretty, but going more in my direction than what actually happened in the series. So it was a book I really wanted to read. I had picked it up from Value Village like many years ago, so I've had it on my TBR for a very long time, but unfortunately finally getting around to it, I just realized this book was not good. I typically don't give out 1 stars all that often, and usually it's for books I end up DNFing, because usually if I hate a book that much and I don't find it worth finishing, that's usually the 1 stars, but this one, there was just something in it that I was just sort of intrigued to finish it, and this is like the only really positive thing I can say about this book, to be honest. There was just like some kind of interesting thing. I think it kind of read like Wattpad fanfiction, really bad Wattpad fanfiction, not like the good kind, because that does exist, but just, you know, like cheaply written, like it's really bad. It read like one of those books I would find on Wattpad that like had only gone through like 1 draft and was just not polished as it could be, and was most likely written by a middle schooler. Which, when I'm picking up a book in physical form that has been published, that's just not what I'm looking for. I was really excited to read this book because I was definitely excited to recommend it to my Jeremiah fans, but I don't really feel like I can do that. I also have to take back any crap I've ever said about Conrad, because however bad I thought Conrad was, Sean is way worse. We also have ADHD rep in this book, and coming from somebody who does have ADHD, I did not like it. I just felt that it was more of like an explanation as to why Adam does stupid things, and more so came off as like stereotypical hyperactive kind of ADHD. Is like, oh well, because I do stupid things because I have ADHD sort of thing, and I don't like that kind of message or representation. Again, like there's a lot of things that I should have liked about this book, because it was friends to lovers, there was fake dating, it had a lot of tropes that I do typically enjoy, but our protagonist was so stupid. Her reasons for liking Sean in the beginning were way worse than Belly's reasons for liking Conrad. It just didn't make a whole lot of sense as to why she liked Sean, and then when you do find out the reasoning behind it, it's the stupidest thing you could even imagine, to the point she really doesn't actually have romantic feelings for him and only just feels like she should. I guess the romance was to some extent enjoyable, but it was so stupid at the same time, especially when Lori was in such denial that it was so annoying to follow. And I already peaked like the second book, and it just does not seem worth the read to me. It doesn't seem like it's gotten any better, and it's just gonna make me frustrated once again. Even though we do get Adam's perspective, it just doesn't feel like worth the read to me, so I don't think I'm gonna pick it up. Who knows, maybe I will one day because I have it right here. Maybe I will end up picking it up, but definitely kind of doubtful, and I don't expect to. And I just would not recommend this book to anyone. It's pretty old YA as well, and there's honestly like a lot of newer YA that's written a lot better, or even there's some older YA titles out there that are still pretty good and still do hold up, but this is just not one of them, and I just don't think it's aged well. And unless you're kind of looking for something that kind of is Wattpad-y, then like maybe pick it up, but just kind of go into it not expecting a whole lot, and maybe your expectations will be met. The next book we have is Waiting for You by Suzanne Colasanti. So this is another one that's been on my TBR for quite a long time. I've been trying to prioritize more books that I've owned for a while to finally get around to them and see if they were worth holding on to all these years. This story, we follow our main character, I believe her name's Marissa, I want to say, and she's always had a crush on this popular guy named Derek, but she ends up reconnecting with her childhood best friend Nash, and they end up becoming close again, and she starts realizing maybe what she thought she wanted isn't really what she actually wants. This story was, not gonna lie, kind of boring and pretty stupid. I gave it a 2.5. It was fine, but once again, kind of similar to The Boys Next Door. If you're looking to read like an older backlist YA sort of title, this is not one I would recommend you off the bat. Again, there's a lot better ones probably out there. We had like a little bit of a Radio Rebel plot in here as our main character is listening to this like podcaster radio sort of dude, and he has like a hidden identity, but everyone just thinks he's like the coolest person, and it's pretty predictable who it is. In fact, this whole entire book was extremely predictable, which I know when coming from like a YA contemporary, you're obviously gonna get like a predictable book, but this was just like so extremely predictable and so obvious, like it couldn't even try to shock me. Like I felt like it was trying to shock me, but it just failed epically. The romance was okay, but I gotta say the getting together was so unsatisfying when you got to the end of the book, especially when you've been trekking through for so long, and then you finally get there to see them like get together, and it just was the most unsatisfying thing I have maybe ever read. The characters were pretty bland and boring and pretty one-dimensional, which maybe again might be due in part to when it was written, but there was nothing really special about these characters. Our main character, Marissa, just didn't really have much of a personality. Derek was your stereotypical popular guy, and then Nash was kind of just like your stereotypical kind of boy next door best friend sort of character, but none of them really had like a lot of depth, I guess, aside from like the Radio Rebel sort of plot line, but even so, not a lot of depth in here. I think there's only one thing that's maybe somewhat caught me off guard, or I couldn't really predict it because it was so kind of bizarre that I guess it wasn't predictable, but like there was a lot of times it was trying to be shocking and it just did not work out. And it was very obvious you knew where it was going to go as soon as like one thing was said. You're like, alright, I know where this is going. And yeah, it's just kind of boring overall. Like, it just wasn't entertaining. It wasn't all that great. There was some parts that kind of made me laugh, like the fact there was a Radio Rebel plot line. I didn't even know this did Radio Rebel before that movie came out, but when did this come out? It came out in 2009, so I can't remember. I think Radio Rebel came out after that, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it did. So I guess it's not trying to be Radio Rebel, but it's kind of ironic when you're looking back at that Disney movie and you're like, wait a second. The next book we have is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. So this one, we're kind of going back now into an upward trajectory, so I'm going to work on actually trying to put this vlog out because I filmed a reading vlog where I read City of Bones for the first time ever, and that is very exciting, and I'm actually pleasantly surprised because I definitely enjoyed this a lot more than I expected to. I gave this a 3.5, so it was a good time overall, and so like I said, I'll give my full spoiler thoughts vlog. But if you don't know what this book's about, essentially we follow our main character Clary, and she finds out that she is a shadow hunter, which is like part angel, part human, and shadow hunters essentially have to kill demons, and her mom has recently been kidnapped, so now she's also trying to go and save her mom while also kind of trying to learn more about herself, that the secret part of her life that's kind of been hidden from her whole life. The characters I think are kind of pretty stereotypical. Like I said, a lot of the older YA titles seem to get lower ratings for me compared to a lot of the newer YA titles or just newer titles in general. I don't know what that says necessarily, that maybe I should have read a lot of these books a lot sooner, but oh well. I was definitely surprised by I think the romance aspect in this, as I did not expect to like Jace and Clary, and I definitely kind of, like I knew where the story was gonna go, but I've heard it takes a turn and that. I'm pretty sure Clary and Jace get to be together, from my knowledge. I know a lot of people ship them, so I'd assume so. And yeah, I think I was definitely expecting to see from the other characters' perspectives, which we didn't in this book, and maybe that's like, I don't know, the second kind of series sort of thing. I don't know when that comes into play or what, but I'm excited to see more of the characters and learn more about them and all that sort of stuff, and just see where the story goes as a whole. The next book we have is The Girl from the Sea by Molly Knox Osterega, I think it is. I buddy read this with one of my friends and started like a little book club, so that's like a fun time. But essentially, this book, we follow this girl named Morgan, and she is closeted and has decided that when she moves away, like, then she'll be able to, like, pursue the things that she wants, but then she ends up meeting this Selkie. The two fall for each other. It was a fun time. I gave this one 4 stars. I would recommend it. It was, I think I was talking, like, it was, like, I think a question in the mid-year Freak Out Tide about, like, which book made you cry. I don't really cry during books, but if I had to choose one book that I think out of all of these that would have made me cry, it was this one. I think was the closest. It was just kind of like feeling sad in the eyes. That's all I can really describe it as, sad in the eyes. But overall, I really liked this book. It's a graphic novel. I got through it pretty quickly, so I don't have like pretty extensive thoughts, but it was good and I would recommend it. And who knows, maybe I'll pick up more from Molly in the future. The next book I read this month was The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. So this was a reread for me because the TV show had come out, or was coming out at that point in time, and so I wanted to reread it before watching the TV show so I could kind of remember the similarities and the differences and compare it. And I think overall the adaptation of this may be better than the book in a sense, because the book, not a lot generally happens, specifically in this one. We'll see. I think I remember a lot happening in the second book more so. But I gave this 4 stars once again. I really enjoyed it. I am still obsessed with Jeremiah, and I don't detest Conrad as much in the show, but I still don't think he's that great in the books. And I remember in the second book, he's much worse. So we'll see where that goes. Because it wasn't really this book that made me hate him, it was the second book. But I'm Team Jeremiah all the way, always have been, always will be, and that's not going to change. Also, Cam in the show. Wonderful. Conrad in the show is also much better than the books, I gotta say. But I'm still Team Jeremiah, so Jeremiah kind of always has my heart, and I just think he gets mistreated, and it makes me upset. So, also my Elm is currently reading that, so there's currently a bookmark in it. So, that's about. I'm converting her to Team Jeremiah as well. Next book we have is What I Like About You by Marisa Cantor, and this is the only book that I read back in May. I read it with my mom. We were like driving and listening to an audiobook, so we picked up this one. This one I haven't actually talked about on my channel quite yet, so this is exciting. So in this book we follow this girl, her name's Hallie, and she has moved to this new town for her senior year. Her parents are like these famous directors, and so she's kind of always been moving around, and so her only really group of friends have been her online friends. That is until she moves to this new town, and she ends up running into one of her online friends in person, and it's before she's kind of really been prepared to meet him. So instead of like telling him who she is, she ends up kind of lying about her identity. Now I did give this book 4 stars, but gotta say, the identity thing, the lying thing, really bugged me and bugged my mother. I think, like, that's what kind of ruined the book for her. Had it not been for that, she would have loved this book a lot more. But this whole time, he just really could not get past the whole Hallie lying about her identity. It just didn't sit well with me, it didn't sit well with her, and made you just feel like Nash just deserved a whole lot better, especially because he was so sweet, he was so cute. Like, I mean, for me personally, like, I would have told him. That's a big bother of this book. But at the same time, it still made me, like, pretty happy overall, and I did really love Nash as a character, despite the fact that I think he deserves way better. And Friends to Lovers is one of my favorite tropes, so it's something I'm gonna almost always enjoy, for the most part. I don't know, would I recommend this book to a specific audience? If you want to be frustrated, if you're willing to go in this and, like, except you're gonna be frustrated throughout it, then go for it, but otherwise I might stay away from it. Because this book, while enjoyable, also very frustrating. There was a sibling relationship in here that I really liked between Hallie and her brother. They were very, very close, and I felt like he was a younger brother, but he was always really able to give Hallie advice on things, and same with her, like, just because they were very close in age, so I really liked that dynamic. It kind of reminded my sister and I, so that was nice to see. And there was a book aspect to it. The main character, she's like a book blogger, so she was referencing a lot of things, and like, she was one of those characters, like, the author, like, knew what she was talking about, like, when she wrote her, and it wasn't just, like, some stereotypical sort of thing. Like, she knew about the book world and all that sort of stuff, and, like, knew what she was talking about, so I liked that aspect of the book. And they watched Stranger Things in one part of this, too, so I was like, overall, this is a 4 star. I liked it, but at the same time, was also a frustrating time. The next book we have is Flip the Script by Lila Lee. This book follows our main character, Hana, and she is starring in a K-drama, but the K-drama isn't doing very well when it comes to ratings, so they end up bringing another girl in to play kind of the other half of the love triangle. However, it's like somebody Hana knows from her past, and the two end up falling for one another. I guess book 4.5. It was wonderful. It just did a lot of things that, like, it just did things right, if that makes sense. This book just knew what it was doing. It took tropes and things that typically are in YA, like miscommunication, for example, where a lot of books, like, for example, What I Like About You, would usually kind of drag that out the entire book, and instead we had a main character who knew how to communicate, and it was so refreshing. Things weren't drawn out longer than they needed to be, or realistically would be, and the main character was like, hey, like, I know what's going on, I need to communicate how I'm feeling, and just did it, and it was wonderful to see. The romance was super cute. It was friends to lovers, which, you know, is my jam. I just loved and adored it. I thought it was really cute and lovely and wonderful and sweet and just all around. This is a fun time. And the K-drama element was fun too, because I do like K-dramas, so, like, I understood everything they were talking about and they were referencing. I was like, oh, I get that. Yeah, I understand. And yeah, now I definitely have to pick up more Lila's books, because this is really good. This is a fun time. I really enjoyed myself reading this, and I mean, I think she only has like one other book like that's YA or something, but yeah, anyways, I'm gonna check it out. It's like I'll Be the One or something like that. Anyways, I'm excited to read it. This was really good. I would recommend it. A fun time. Go check this book out. Last two books here, let's go. Next we have The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This book is about this girl. Her name is Olive, and she is a PhD student, and she has recently broken up with this guy named Jeremy. Now, it wasn't like all of that like serious of a relationship, but she noticed that sparks were flying between him and her friend On, and she really wants her friend On to be happy, but On kind of wants to respect girl code and like not date your friend's ex and whatever, and so Olive ends up lying to her friend and saying, actually, like, I do have a boyfriend, and coming up with this lie so that she will end up dating Jeremy. However, on a night when she lies saying that she's on a date, she ends up meeting in the same place as her, and she ends up kissing like the closest guy near her, which ends up being Adam Carlson, who is one of the professors at her university. So the two of them end up fake dating. There's some things in like that would help Adam out, and also things that would help out Olive to kind of get her friend to date Jeremy, but fake dating soon just becomes real, and the two fall for each other. I'd seen a lot of hype surrounding this book, so I was pretty excited about it because the hype and whatever, but I also at the same time, like, I didn't want to be let down, and I wasn't entirely sure whether this book would work for me, but the more I heard about it, the more I was convinced I'd love it, and sure enough, I did. When I say I like Grumpy Sunshine, this is what I mean. There's a lot of Grumpy Sunshine out there that would not work for me, like Conrad and Belly. I don't know why I have to keep referencing them, but those are the only ones I can think of right now. Like, Conrad and Belly is one of those Grumpy Sunshine dynamics that don't work for me, but Adam and Olive was one that just did. Adam was kind of just soft for the main character, Olive, like, right from the start, and I just thought it was really cute. I really liked their dynamic. I loved their relationship. Their romance was very swoony and cute and wonderful. The fake dating was fun. Adam was cute. This book was just a fun time. It was a fun ride. I would recommend it, and it was nice, like, demisexual rep, which was nice to see because it's something I don't really see that often in books, and this was great. 5 stars. Wonderful. The final book that I read this month, and my favorite book of the month and current favorite book of the year, is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. This book I've been reading for a long time, a few months now. I've been reading it since my cousin recommended it to me, and I mean, it's a book I wanted to pick up for a while because while I didn't have the best luck with Beach Read, I was so willing to give Emily Henry a second chance, and I'm so glad I did because this was excellent. In this book we follow Poppy and Alex, and they take a vacation every single summer, and they are best friends, and up until about 2 summers ago when something happened in Croatia, and now the two are barely speaking to one another. That is until Poppy is kind of having this rut at work, and she's like this travel person, and she thinks back to the last time she was happy, which was when she was on vacation with Alex. So she ends up inviting him on one last trip together, and things start to happen. I am such a sucker for friends to lovers, and I thought Alex was like just the cutest human being. I mean, I related to him a lot, so like that's probably why I liked him. I think I was definitely more similar to Alex than I was Poppy, but like Alex was just so cute, and I love him so much. New comfort character for sure. And the relationship was just so, like, I was gushing the whole time. Every time I open this book, it just fills me with happiness, and I just felt like I was in this happiness high. It was one of those books that, like, while I was reading it, I just went back and reread parts because I was just like, oh, it's so cute. It just makes me happy, makes me squeal. It was just excellent, incredible. I loved it. There was flashbacks, which were fun to read too. Sometimes they weren't, in the sense of, like, sometimes I was just too invested in what was going on in present day. Like, I did not care for the flashbacks right now. I'm like, just show up later. I don't care right this second. I just want to read about what's happening right now. But they were fun to see, like, get insight to Poppy and Alex's past, and there was, like, a mutual pining element, which I'm kind of hit or miss. I'm not sure if I like mutual pining or not, but in this book it did work for me. I don't know, I'm a sucker for unrequited love for some reason, but I also, Mutual Pining can do great things as well. Maybe I do like Mutual Pining. I don't know yet. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I'm not sure. I think it depends on the book. Which, I mean, you could say about, like, any trope, honestly. But yeah, as a sucker for Friends to Lovers, I would recommend this. It kind of reminded me of, like, the adult version of Better Off Friends by Elizabeth Eulberg. So I feel like if you like this book and you want something that's kind of YA, maybe, or Friends to Lovers, I'd recommend Better Off Friends. It's definitely pretty similar to that. It gave out similar vibes. Or kind of reminded me of Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. Those are the two kind of books that came to mind that this book kind of gave me similar vibes to. But yeah, I loved and adored this. I'm so glad my cousin recommended this to me. To be fair, she recommended it to me by telling me the characters reminded her of one of my favorite ships, which is always how you should recommend me books from now on. Just compare them to, like, one of my favorite ships, and I will read it, for sure. That's the only way I'm accepting book recommendations now. But yeah, this is a fun time, and I'm glad. I definitely prioritized it a lot more because of my cousin recommended it to me. And it was so, so good. It was so, so cute, and I recommend it to everyone else now. Goodness gracious, can I hold these? Can I show you the 9 books that I read? So these are the 9 books that I read in June. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a big fat thumbs up, and subscribe if you want to see more of this lovely face, and I'll talk to y'all soon in a new video. Goodbye!